The Christian lobby, you know, lobbies are interesting. I wish that the Muslim and Arab people would model themselves after AIPAC. AIPAC is doing almost nothing illegal. They're not, you know, that's not always true, but you can, within the framework of the law, I believe that the Arab and Muslim community have a lot more power. They could be much more effective and really have some influence in the direction our country goes. And so I mean, the Christians are well organized, and having a weekly meeting at church certainly helps their organizing efforts. But I'd like to see that kind of model used by others. I mean, the Christian lobby, you know, that you're talking about is already a right-wing evangelical lobby that's well organized and already supporting at very high levels for Republican conservative votes. I don't think that's going to change much. And so I think it's more important to add people to the mix who are not voting. You know, the United States ranks 127th out of 172 countries in voter turnout. 127th out of 172. That's an embarrassment. And so I think it's important for us to figure out those non-voters are the more important ones to organize. And those non-voters include the Muslim and Arab community. And they don't vote because, in fact, the two reasons of non-voters. One is the inconvenience of voting on a workday. At a time when 1 out of 4 Americans earns less than $10 an hour, those people can't take off time for work unless it's a real good reason. And when they look at the choice, the second reason that the polls say, they don't have a choice between the two parties. They don't represent their interests. They don't respond to their needs. And so I think we need to figure out ways to expand our democracy and activity in our democracy so that voters do have more choices, and choices that matter to them. I mean, when I'm looking at my campaign, this is not a political event, so I'm not going to talk very much about it, just with answering your question. When I look at my campaign, it's interesting to see that my views on a whole range of issues are closer to the views of Republican and Democratic voters than they are to the leadership of the Republican and Democratic parties. It's almost like when you talk about religious people that the fundamentalists are further away from the moderate religious people and the atheists. The atheists and the moderate religious folks are closer together, but the fundamentalists are in their own place. And I think the same is true with politics. The leadership of the two parties is very corporate, bought off. As John McCain says, our electoral system is nothing less than a massive influence peddling scheme where both parties conspire to sell the country to the highest bidder. And I think that's true. And I said in front of Republican audiences, they agree it's true too. Everybody agrees it's true. We all know that's another one of those elephants in the living room, is the corruption of our government. And so why don't people vote? I think those are the kinds of reasons. So we need to give people reasons to vote and make it easier for them to vote, and then we'll have a real democracy. Right now our democracy is faltering. It's in terrible shape. It's weak. You look at yesterday's voting in Maryland. I've been working for 3 years to try to get a paper trail for electronic voting machines. As I was sitting there watching the mess of Maryland unfold yesterday, I was thinking about, this is about 10 o'clock at night. I'm sitting with the people running for office and stuff, and realizing that we could have, if we had paper ballots in every precinct and counted them by hand, there's about 500 voters in every precinct on average, we'd have the results in a half an hour. And yet we spent $100+ million on electronic voting machines and still don't have the results today. It's crazy. So we could have a much simpler system that's much more transparent, where people feel more confident the results are actually being counted. And yet we choose this corporate approach of electronic voting that, anyway. But we need to figure out ways not to worry about the Christian lobby, but instead to worry about those that don't vote and get them involved. Let them see that their interests are at stake. And that's more important to me than worrying about the Christian lobby, because they're already organized. We need to get the people who aren't voting organized, get them active.